going to put you on the spot. If I said, hey, there's 3 headlines or 3 bumper stickers that need to be out there on the environment and animals, what are some short statements that you give a lot of talks that resonate with people that America needs to hear on animals and environment? What would they be?
Well, the one thing is, I think it's really important that we communicate that agriculture can be an environmental challenge and even a problem if we decide to ignore things such as methane.
Yeah.
But if we take that beast by the horns and we manage, for example, methane, then we can really be a major driver of change in a positive way.
Yeah.
So we can turn a problem into part of a solution. And that is not some greenwashing. For example, if you ignore methane and you just put it into the air, it's a potent greenhouse gas that will warm our planet.
Yep. And you said today, I heard you say, reducing methane reduces...
Warming. Reducing methane reduces warming. That's a bumper sticker there.
Yep.
Now, first of all, farmers need to understand that this is not a topic they must fear, but it's a topic they must take seriously.
Yeah.
And that's a difference, okay? Yeah. It is only a topic they should fear if they ignore it, if they act as if it's not theirs.
Yeah.
But if they say, I own this, I own the management of my resources such that I want to reduce methane, then they can be part of a climate solution. And that is a big deal.
Yeah. I've said, as AI is to the tech industry, that's the next generation of as Alzheimer's is to human pharma, as electronic cars to the auto, sustainability to agriculture, animal agriculture. So how do we create a revolution by the farmers to see this as the next generation of opportunity, not I have to do it. It's regulated on me. You said today it has to be the carrot, not the stick. How do we do that, Frank?
I think one of the most important things is that we have to explain to the farming community that this topic is real. It's not just some changing weather also that we're dealing with. It is a changing climate.
Well, I want to stop on that because you said to me earlier, but we've spoken to lots of large audiences, you and I. There's people out there that say, yeah, this global warming thing, this temperature thing, you studied as much as anybody in animal agriculture. Tell me, what's your position on the climate right now?
Well, I have no doubt that climate is changing and that human activity is to be blamed for much of those changes. There's also a natural change of climate. But in addition to that, we now see a human-induced exaggeration of the problem, okay? And that is largely linked to the burning of fossil fuels, which are oil, coal, and gas. The more of that stuff we burn, we are burning that, we're putting it into the atmosphere within a short time period.
Yeah.
By doing so, we are generating more carbon emissions, and that drives temperature changes. Yeah. But on the animal agricultural side, while it's not CO2, carbon dioxide, that's causing the issue, it is methane. Yeah. And that methane is really nothing other than energy if you think about it. Yeah. So that in itself is not a problem unless you just off-gas that into the air all by itself. If you utilize it by making it into a utility, then it's not a problem but an asset. So if we, for example, use a feed additive to reduce enteric methane, which is the methane belched out by animals, then more of the energy the animal eats can be converted into product, into milk or meat.
Yeah.
And less is just lost to the environment.
Yeah.
That's a good change.
Yeah.
If you cover a lagoon where the manure is stored, then you prevent the gases that normally come off the animal manure, much of which is methane,
Great gas,
to go into the air.
Yeah.
We can now cap it. We can convert it into fuel and run vehicles with it. Right. We are doing this here in California at a large scale.
Right. Can we live in a farming environment where there's climate neutral farms? Is that possible, and maybe connected to your California agenda that you've helped lead?
So the answer is yes, it is possible. And here's how it's possible.
Climate neutral farming is possible.
Climate neutral farming is possible, and here's how.
Okay.
And I'm not saying this is the only recipe. This is one recipe, the one that we have deployed here in the state.
Yep.
So our legislature had devised the most aggressive of all methane goals in the world, which is to reduce methane by 40%, 40,
Yep.
by the year 2030.
Yeah.
So that's 6 years from now. So we must reduce 40% methane below 2013 thresholds. So the baseline is 2013, okay? The goal is to reduce 7.2 million metric tons of that gas, 7.2. So we've started this 7 years ago, and of the 7.2 that we must achieve, we have already reduced half. So I just learned today that what I thought was true was not true, that it was more. It was 3.5 million metric tons that have already been reduced largely through manure technologies, okay? So
the levers are what?
The four levers.
The four levers are.
So the four levers are, first of all, we have increasing productivity. That means we need relatively fewer cows, and those shrinking herds are called attrition.
Attrition. Yep.
Attrition is one lever.
Which is really productivity, more productivity, less animals.
Right.
Yep.
The second one is alternative manure management practices. So these are things like screw presses and manure screens and so on.
Gotcha, yep.
Separating the solid from the liquid.
Yep.
That's a second lever. The third one is anaerobic digesters. Here in California, we call them covered lagoons, where you cover the biogas, you convert it into either fuel for vehicles, or you make it into power for residential homes.
Yeah.
And the fourth lever is feed additives. So these four tools, attrition, alternative manure management practices, anaerobic digesters, and feed additives, will reduce more than 40% of what we need to do. And that is by 2030, and that is sensational. That is sensational.
It is.
And what's even more important is that the reason why this works, the reason why our farmers were able to do it, is because we worked with and not against the farmers. Our legislature put out a voluntary incentive-based approach, which means the state works even financially with farmers to reduce emissions. As opposed to many other places in the world where they take the big stick out and say, you reduce emissions, and if you don't, we'll fine you, or we tax you.
Yeah, because I got to say, as an innovator in this space, we've had innovation that's been very effective in food safety, removing E. coli from beef. We've had a protein for mastitis and to replace antibiotics. And they haven't been used. They're actually on the shelf. I have two technologies on the shelf that are effective because there wasn't a value creation sustainable enough for the farmer. How do we assure that they don't stay on the shelf and they get used? How are you seeing that in California, even across this country?
So what we have done here is we, the university, and other partner universities, have worked with the legislature to inform our policymakers, first of all, of what's possible, of what fact-based information is driving practices in the state, and what that can result in. And our legislature listened. I'm really encouraged by that. California is often criticized by other states, you know that, right? As being too regulated and so on. But there's an example of the legislature in this state really working to work with the farming sector.
Does that lead to the incentives you're talking about, or is this beyond the incentives? Is this more policy to get them economic gain?
It's both.
Okay.
It's both. We have a cap and trade market in the state of California that has led to us having different kinds of, for example, low carbon fuel standard credits and other credits that farmers can get, and it's that additional check that they can get. They are not just selling milk now, they're also selling their carbon credits.
Do you think some might critique that and say, but that's California, that's not Wisconsin or New York or whatever. I mean, we don't have these incentives. I think you and I agree incentives are key to catalyze this change, but you start to see this inset market create. How important is that, Frank?
I think it's critically important. It's not one or the other. It's all of these different approaches together that will cause a real shift of the needle. Okay, I am so proud working with these farmers of improving their sustainability, the welfare of their animals, the livelihood that these farmers have, and that collaboration is extremely important to us.
They kind of say, without vision, you perish. there's a lot of people that are chasing this opportunity in animals and animal agriculture today that probably we didn't even know 20 years ago that could be the greatest thing the next 50 years, and that's environmental sustainability through animals and animal health and animal agriculture. Thank you. It's great to share a glass of milk and be at a shared table with you and sharing a conversation. Thank you.
Pleasure's mine.